Hi, I'm DM Gallibond, and last week at the table, we look at what happened in the three actual play games I run on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Gallibond. Now let's get on with the show. On Thursday night, we are playing the Dragon of Icespire Peak Essentials game. The live sessions for this game air at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. On the night, we were joined by Gorham, Abenadam, Flynn, and Dorzapir. Last week, the party continued exploring the ruins with a dwarf archaeologist. During these explorations, they found more secret doors and a couple of additional artifacts, including a holy symbol of Abathor. As they traveled deeper into the complex, the PCs noticed that the dwarves were showing more and more signs of greed. They even began looking side-eyed at the players as though they thought the PCs were trying to steal their treasure. Abinadam cast a detect magic spell on the dwarves, but they did not seem to be under any magical effects. Now the PCs did notice a fine dusting of spores all over the canyon floor outside and inside the ruins. They could not identify the spores, but they collected some samples to take back to the alchemist in Phandelver for further analysis. So the party took their rest on the portico of the temple and set watches for the night, while the two dwarf archaeologists took their rest inside the temple itself. Now during the second watch of the night, a group of orcs attacked. Now, one of the first things that happened is that the dwarves slammed the doors inside the temple, keeping the PCs from being able to retreat inside. But the Gorham's axe proved very thirsty as he struck the killing blow on three of the orcs. Poor Flynn was nearly felled in the first round as two orcs ran up and struck him with their great axes. And Abenadam had a chance to shine as well. His three well-timed spells proved quite effective. His first spell, the audible illusion of a dragon's roar, froze several of the orcs in their tracks and made them look around, very frightened. Then his sleep spell took one enemy completely out of the fight and sent him off to La La Land. And Abenadam's magic missile spell slew another orc dead. In the end, only the sleeping orc was left to question after the party had killed the others. He reported that the orcs had been driven from their lair by a white dragon, confirming rumors that the party had heard before they ever left Leolin. They decided to give the orc a chance to flee, and it did so. Will their mercy come back to haunt them? You'll have to tune in to find out. So the next day, they traveled to Gnomengard, where they met some very nerdy gnomes playing with all sorts of magical gadgets and growing some really big mushrooms. We didn't have time for much beyond an impromptu jam session between Flynn and some of the gnome casters who decided to add a light show. Dorzapir also used his arcane trickster features to conjure some sparks for the musician. And that's where we ran out of time. So we'll pick up there next week with the PCs talking to the gnomes. Now, on Saturday at noon Eastern Time, we played the History of D&D campaign. This is a homebrew game set in a homebrew world using the original D&D rules. In session 14, the party limped back to Dedale to recover from the disaster at the well, but not before they heard the telltale sounds of the remaining giant crayfish making a meal out of his two stunned and sleeping friends. So after getting some healing in town and spending a night recovering from their ordeal, they set out again the next day. This time they took their old pals Aethert and Gowis with them for more adventures and a little extra backup. The plan was to swing by the moat house, finish off that damned crayfish, and find whatever treasure they had seen gleaming on the far side of the chamber with the well, and then go on the hunt for Bargle's lair. They also divvied up the magic items they had identified last week. Trophim, the magic user, took the bracers of free action. Sylvia took the staff of striking, and Siren got the plate mail +1. Once they made it back to the moat house, Trophim used his sleep spell, and both Sylvia and Siren had the spell prepared just in case they needed it. But this time the magic user's spell landed on the monster, and with the creature subdued, all Omu had to do is slide a blade into a tender spot, and that slew the giant crayfish, ending its threat to the party. Over in the area where they had seen the glint of treasure, they found a scroll with 3 spells on it that the elves and Trophim can eventually use. It's got a first level push spell, a second level stinking cloud spell, and a third level fly spell. They also found a platinum pendant with a really fancy looking ruby, though the fact that it shows the patina of age told the party it probably wasn't magical. Then they set out to try to locate the lair of Bargle. With some good observation skills, they deciphered the riddle and realized there was an oak tree in the area described that grows in the shape of a Y. And beside this tree is a game trail that shows it is regularly used by humanoids once they knew what they were looking for. Following this trail for about an hour led to a broader path and eventually to a crumbling stone wall about 50 feet high and about 300 feet wide. They noticed brand new gates in the wall and a breach off to one side where it looked like a collapsed section of the wall had not yet been repaired. But in front of the wall, some 100 feet out in front of the wall, it looks like there is a pit that has the old rotting gates haphazardly felled across it. So Sylvia and Siren went over to investigate at the pit with the felled doors, and they were almost immediately attacked by a carrion crawler. The monster waved its tentacles menacingly at them, but the party gained the initiative and managed to slay it before it could strike. They saw the glint of coins and a kobold skeleton in the pit, and everyone decided to pass on looting it, even though they saw the glint of coins below. Now the party is spooked and anxious, and they're almost too anxious, one might say. So Siren went to the breach in the wall to peek beyond, and he saw 2 kobolds standing guard on the side of a low, long structure that is across a wide courtyard and is enclosed by the wall on 3 sides. Now the back of that structure abuts a steep hillside, so that's why there's no wall on the back. Omu also moved up, and he saw several more kobolds. Then the party's anxiety really set in. They were paralyzed with fear and indecision about whether to attack, whether they should try to sneak in, or using the armor that Siren has and the cloaks that they all have with the symbol of Bargle on them, if they could just try to bluff their way in. So they debated amongst themselves about 20 minutes of real time what they wanted to do, and meanwhile the session was getting closer and closer to ending. So Wesley, who's playing Sylvia, eventually he said that eventually Sylvia just is getting tired of waiting. So Sylvia took out a bow and shot one of the kobolds standing guard across the courtyard. She killed it with a single shot from range, but when it died, its partner raised the alarm. And as it did, they saw a bunch of kobolds start to react, and they realized there's a total of about 9 kobolds left for them to fight. But the good news is, as we said before, when they left town this morning, Three of the party members had memorized sleep, so there's still two sleep spells memorized in the party. So they are not sure whether that's going to be enough to deal with these kobolds, but we ran out of time even before we could get to the point of rolling initiative. So when we pick up next week, we will start with initiative and we will go into that fight with the kobolds and we will figure out what it is that the party wants to do. So they we'll get back with them on Saturday at noon. Now on Sundays at 2:30, normally we play the Walker of Waterdeep game, but in the U.S., Sunday was of course Super Bowl Sunday, so we decided that since there was some overlap in our game session and the time that the game was supposed to start, we just would skip for the week. So we did not play a session of Walker of Waterdeep this week, but we will be back at it at 2:30 p.m. on Sunday, the 9th of February. Well, that is last week from the table for Tuesday, February 4th, 2020. And I am DM Gallibond, and I'll just remind you that whenever you play a game of D&D, try to make it memorable so that you have some stories from your table that you would like to share. Good night, everyone.